Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Maureen Strickland. I'm the Social Enterprise Development Specialist for the Social Enterprise and Entrepreneurship One Social Enterprise Partnership in the Northern Region. This webinar is building on some of the last two webinars we've done on deciding on go or no go, if you're going to go ahead with your social enterprise, and then different things to think about during the first 3 years of your social enterprise, the startup phase. And this particular webinar is Social Enterprise Scale Up. Grow the enterprise, increase your social impact. If you're just coming into this webinar now and you haven't seen the other ones, you can view them off of our webpage. In about 10 days, they will be uploaded. So we have Zach Lowe here as well. He's a research associate at Nordic Institute, and he's going to be monitoring the chat box. We have everybody on mute. If you do have a question, please type it into the chat box, and Zach will make sure that we get your questions answered. Again, we are giving a brief overview of the One Partnership at the beginning of each webinar, so some of this may be repeat for some of you who have attended a few of these webinars. So moving along, this one is on Scale Up, and again, we'll be pointing out some key points of consideration when you're thinking about moving from your startup phase and considering if you want to scale up. So an overview of the Northern Region Partnership. The partnership is being led by Nordic Institute, which is a community enterprise development research center at Algoma University. It's affiliated with the Community Economic and Social Development Program. We have members of the different organizations that belong to the One Partners on our steering committee. The representative for the Small Business Enterprise Centers is the Timmins Small Business Enterprise Center. Representative for the Regional Innovation Centers is Northwest Innovation Center in Thunder Bay. The representative for the Campus Linked Accelerators is ULaunch. And we also have the not-for-profit Perro Center for Women's Enterprise, which is based up in Thunder Bay. This One Partnership is being funded in part by the Ontario Ministry of Economic Development and Growth. And the purpose of the partnership is to support the development, is to help support the development of social enterprises and social entrepreneurs in the North by giving service providers, both in the One Network of Entrepreneurs as well as other economic development and business development organizations, tools and resources they need to assist social entrepreneurs. And we are covering all of Northern Ontario, stretching from Parry Sound to the Manitoba border and including the James Bay coast. So recording these webinars is one way that we are able to assist both business development officers and entrepreneurs in remote areas who might not be able to attend in-person workshops. Again, what is a social enterprise? Social enterprises have a mission to address social, environmental, economic, and cultural challenges. Their core vision is to meet a need around one of these challenges. They invest their profits above their operational expenses back into meeting this need, and they measure their success. So they're using a triple bottom line approach: people, planet, and profit. They also have to take a business form. Social enterprises themselves is not a business form. They could be a not-for-profit, they could be a cooperative, a sole proprietorship, a partnership. So social enterprise itself is not a business form. They take on a traditional business form. And if you're right now in the position of considering on scaling up, you've already made all these decisions. And these are some of the things that we talked about in previous webinars to help you come to those sorts of decisions. So what is scaling up? Typically, it's a social enterprise that has been in operation for more than 3 years, and they're ready to grow the enterprise and expand their social impact. The reason they're wanting to expand is because they see opportunities around potentially launching a new product, see opportunities around maybe moving their business into a new geographical area, or they see that they are not meeting the actual demand for the product or service that they currently have. So this is important because you don't want to scale up just because you want to make a bigger impact. You have to have proof that your business is still viable to make that bigger impact. So the scaling up of your impact and the scaling up of your business go hand in hand, and both have to be analyzed. So considerations for scaling up. You need a solid business. You need a solid enterprise in order to even think about starting to grow your business. And we're going to talk about what that means, what kind of factors you're assessing to determine that your business is solid enough to scale up. You're going to need to make sure that your business plan is updated and that your financial projections are updated. So we've talked before about how the business plan is a living document. If you're thinking about scaling up, then you need to basically write a new business plan. You use the foundation of your old one, but if you're starting to maybe develop a new product or move into a new geographical area, well, clearly there are new expenses associated with doing that, and you essentially need to add all of this into your new business plan. You also have to think, if you're a not-for-profit or you're a cooperative, you will have a board who's governing your social enterprise. You need to give thought to what's the position of your board members around the scale up? Do you have their commitment? And also, do you have the skills needed to scale up on your board? Because the people that were the founding members of your board are maybe not the people that are now who you need on that board to scale up. You also need to think about the impact this is going to have on your social mission. Again, you can't just scale up because you want to increase your social impact. If you do that, it could mean that your business goes under, which means that you're no longer making a social impact. So that is a consideration, and you also have to think about, do you have the capitalization required to scale up? So these are the key considerations when you're thinking about making that move. Okay, what do I mean by a solid enterprise? I mean that you have strong financials, that you have bookkeeping, financial record keeping, management systems in place, that you're analyzing that information. If you're not doing any of that, then you might have a very healthy business, but you actually don't know that. And you certainly don't have the information you need to get capital to grow your business. So you need to have strong financials before you can even consider scaling up. You cannot be relying on grants for your operations. If you are, don't even think about scaling up, because what that means is that you're not actually running a viable enterprise. You could have grants that are funding a niche activity of your social enterprise that doesn't impact on the operational costs. But if your grant is going into operations, don't think about scaling up. You need to know that the demand exceeds the supply now, or that you know there is demand for a new market, you know there's a demand in a new region. If that demand isn't in place, just like when you started your business, if there was no demand for what you were thinking of, you didn't even open your doors. It became a no-go decision. So again, go kind of through that no-go decision-making process when you're thinking about scaling up. Do you have the staff you need? Do you have core staff that are trained, don't require a lot of, know what they're doing, are committed, responsible, that you're not spending a lot of time with huge staff turnover, or having to train staff, or having to deal with human resource issues. Scaling up is a very tricky time. You need to know you have a core solid staff in order to undertake this. Again, the board support and the expertise that you need. And because you're a social enterprise and your goal is to make that social impact, will scaling up have a quantifiable impact? Like, maybe it won't. And if it doesn't, is there a reason to scale up? So you also need to, again, in tandem, you're looking at scaling up your business enterprise, and you're also looking at, how does this scale up my impact? And if you're scaling up your business enterprise, you're not scaling up your impact, maybe you decide not to do it. Or maybe you decide you're going to do it, but you're no longer a social enterprise, and that's fine too. But just keep that, be aware of that. I'll just stop here and see if there's any questions. No? Okay. So one of the first things you need to do is you're going to update your business plan and your financial projections. And you need, as I mentioned, you need to do this because it might turn out by doing this that A, there is no market for what you imagine, or that B, you don't have the, you don't have the cash flow to make it happen. So by going through those steps to redo your business plan, redo your cash flow projections, that's your go, no-go decision making for the expansion, and you have to do that. It can't just be like a gut feeling that you think it's going to work. So key questions you're asking yourself: is there sufficient demand for the expansion? How much will meeting this demand cost? That's when you're doing your cash flow projections again. Analyze the external environment again. Who are your competition now? You started 3 years ago. Maybe you created quite a splash, and now people are mimicking what you're doing. So you can't forget about all those external factors either. Is your current cash flow adequate to meet the demands of the expansion? And will the risk of expanding jeopardize the social mission? And what that really means is, will the risk of expanding jeopardize your business? Like, if you expand too soon, too fast, not without the correct information, that doesn't just mean your enterprise shuts down. It means that the impact you're making is no longer as well. So getting back to the governance part, we touched on the importance of redoing your business planning, making sure the core aspects of the business side of your enterprise are in order. Now we're talking about the governance. If you are governed by a board, you need those board members on side when you scale up. If they're not in agreement to sort of the management thinking you're ready to expand, but the board isn't fully on board, that's going to cause you problems, because ultimately they're making those key big picture decisions. Do you need new board? Do you need new skills on that board? Is your board stagnant? As part of this expansion, do you need new expertise? Well, if you do, you need to move some board members off the board and get new board members on. And you need to do all of this at least 6 months prior to actually starting the business expansion, because you don't want to be dealing with board issues while you're in the midst of expanding the business side of your social enterprise. So you need to think this ahead. You need to plot it out. An expansion could require access to capital. In order for you to put a package together to get that capital, you've been in business now for 3, maybe 4 years. You actually have a track record that you can show potential lenders, funders, grant makers, how well you've run your business and your actuals. So put together all of your actual financials for the past 3 years, your balance sheets, your income statements, put together your new cash flow projections. You're going to have your updated business plan. You're going to have a record, perhaps, of a strong record of paying off debt that you may have incurred when you started up. You're going to show in your cash flow that you've thought it through and that you know where you might need an injection of working capital as the expansion occurs. So all of this, these documents, the business plan, the financial, your actual financials, and your updated financial projections are going to be what any lender may want to see, any social finance lender may want to see, and it's going to give them the picture that you are ready to expand, you've thought it through, and it makes sense. And so, as I said, you're doing these two things in tandem. You're taking care of the enterprise aspect of your social enterprise, but you're also taking care of the mission aspect. So here, if you've been, and you should have been, doing some estimate and tracking the impact of the social mission that you had based your business on, you also need to project ahead how that impact could increase with this expansion, and are the two things related? And I can't reiterate enough that a failed expansion could mean you're not making any impact at all. So given that you started this social enterprise with the passion to address some type of social, environmental, cultural, economic mission, you have to really ask yourself, are you ready to take the risk that a poor expansion will mean that that mission will no longer be met at all? So don't forget that in this analysis. So just a summary of things to consider to be in a strong position to scale up. Scale up when you are from a very solid enterprise position. You're solid financially, operationally, you have a track record of impact. Scale up when you have an updated, accurate, honest, new business plan, reflects the scale up, and your new cash flow projections. Scale up with a board that is supportive of the expansion and has the skills to guide it. And again, scale up with accurate financial monitoring, particularly of your cash flow. And don't forget all those things that you learned and implemented when you were starting up your business and monitoring your staffing needs, your social impact, your finances regularly. You need to do that even more often when you're scaling up, because it's a very precarious time. So you need to be ready. Your board needs to be ready. Your staff needs to be ready to go that kind of extra mile during the scale up part of your business life. So here's a worksheet. It was emailed to you earlier. It just helps you assess these parameters that are necessary for a successful scale up. So if you're considering it, this worksheet, again, write down your social mission. You don't want to ever forget that. Comment on the enterprise that you're running and where that new enterprise might take you, or this new scale up. Are you producing a new product? Are you meeting a new demand, etc.? And then very honestly go through these factors and judge whether you are in a weak position, an adequate position, a strong position, or an excellent position. And if one of these things is only adequate, and certainly if they're weak, then you are not ready to scale up. You would then need to do work on solidifying those aspects, get everything in the strong and excellent column. Obviously, excellent would be the best, but I think that everything in strong and excellent for the demand for the expansion, the business plan, the financial projections, the cash flow position, the board support, the board expertise, and access to new capital. If all of those are strong, excellent, then you would be in a good position to scale up your social enterprise. As well, in parallel, as I mentioned, with the business planning, continue to look at new ways you might want to measure your impact as you scale up. And we're giving a webinar tomorrow on how to ways to measure your social impact. Because once again, this information is not only useful for accessing social finance capital, it's also useful in marketing your business, branding, and telling your story to your community and other people that would be interested in your social enterprise. Oops. So again, we talk about our other resources at the end of each of our webinars. We do have a webpage, www.seethechange.ca. On that webpage, there's a link to our SurveyMonkey for evaluations of these webinars. If you wouldn't mind taking the time to go there and providing us with some feedback, that would be great. These webinars will be on the webpage in the next 10 days, as well as the ability to download the worksheets from the webinars. And we have other resources there as well. There's links to we have a newsletter. There's links to our newsletter on that webpage, and other resources, profiles of other social entrepreneurs, as well as links to all the ONE members in Northern Ontario. So when you're ready to scale up, you should go knock on the door of your social, small business enterprise center, because they have the skill to help you work through addressing those areas where you may be weak or adequate in terms of business planning, cash flow forecasting, etc. Our upcoming opportunities, we have 5 more webinars this week. We're We're holding regional roundtables end of January in Kenora at the Northwest Business Center, end of February in the Northeast at Timmins at the Economic Development Center. Those are opportunities for networking, taking workshops, etc. We're also developing peer mentoring, looking for people who are interested in being peer mentors to social entrepreneurs in the North, and also helping people form peer mentoring circles for mutual support. And we have a webinar tomorrow on an interesting pilot project here in Sault Ste. Marie that links the Small Business Enterprise Center with the Community Futures Development Corporation and social entrepreneurs to provide training and capital. And on Thursday, we have a webinar on how to create a peer support circle of social entrepreneurs in your community. Again, here's the link for the evaluation of the webinar. And if you want to get a hold of us, you can also email us at info@seethechange.ca. So I'll see if there's any questions. No, we have no questions. Maybe we'll wait like 15 seconds and see if any questions pop up. If not, tomorrow's webinars are 12 noon is on measuring impact, and 1 o'clock is quickly going over the peer lending partnership pilot that is happening here in Sault Ste. Marie, if you'd like to join us. Thank you very much.
What time is the webinar on Friday?
The webinar on Friday has been moved to Thursday. On Thursday, we have asset mapping at noon, online resource, going over our webpage at 1 o'clock, and the peer mentoring circles at 2 on Thursday, and that's our final webinar. Okay, so if there's no other questions, I will say goodbye and see you perhaps tomorrow.